त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मध्येशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। Namaste everyone. So, in this introduction to Vedanta, after seeing the human goals, we saw how to achieve these goals. To achieve these goals, Ishvara has given us the Shastras. So we saw the Shastras, and then in terms of achieving these goals, these human pursuits, Purusharthas, there is also an infrastructure that has been built, has been given by our Shastras. And we saw that infrastructure is at the social level, as the society level, and also at the individual level. At the society level, we have this Varna Vibhagaha, and at an individual level, we have this Ashrama Vibhagaha. Varna, we saw that they are 4, and they can be we can actually look at them in 3 different ways. One is through guna, the other one is through karma, and the other one is jati or birth. And we saw how that jati or karma does not matter, only guna matters when it comes to spiritual pursuit. From an ashrama standpoint, we saw that there are 4 ashramas at the individual. Ashrama meaning stage of life. So there are 4 stages of life. The first one being Brahmachari Ashrama. Brahmachari Ashrama is primarily that during the Brahmachari Ashrama, the student stage, the person is focused on learning the Shastras, learning about the rituals. Why do we need rituals? Rituals is needed first to, one way is to develop discipline. The second is to actually ensure that we are out of this laziness. We get some dynamism in life. And the third is, of course, the rituals help us to build bhakti. Apart from knowing the Shastras, the students are also taught on the values of life. And we saw, as a student, one should not be focused on comforts or earning money, and should be only focused on learning and contributing. The next ashrama is the Grahastha Ashrama. After student life, a person gets married and he gets into the Grahastha Ashrama. This is a very important institution. Marriage is also an important institution. The Grahastha Ashrama is an important stage of life. Grahastha Ashrama, we have to focus on the material goals as incidental goals only. The focus should be primarily on self-improvement from a spiritual standpoint. So values like titiksha, sharing, accommodating others, forgiveness, trust, those are the key values that one should imbibe or one should actually develop during this Grahastha Ashrama stage. And as I said, Grahastha Ashrama is an important ashrama because it is the one that actually sustains the other 3 ashramas: Brahmachari Ashrama, Vanaprastha Ashrama, and Sannyasa Ashrama. The other 3 ashramas are not supposed to earn money. So they don't have access to money, and therefore for their living expenses, the Grahastha Ashrama is the person who has to support all the 3 ashramas. Grihastha Ashrama, our Shastras allow people to have their desires fulfilled as long as the desires are within Dharma. Dharma in this context means everything that is legal, moral and legitimate. Without upsetting the harmony of the society or the individual is Dharma. But having said that, the focus should also be on developing other gunas which would be needed as the person progresses to the next stage, which is to ensure that this person performs some tapas. Tapas is basically voluntary discomfort. Any voluntary discomfort is a tapas, within not exceeding the our body, or not at the same time not actually spoiling our health, physical or mental. And the reason is, whenever we are enjoying through our sense organs, eating good food, going to places, listening to good music, being with friends, gossiping, all those things, there will be a time when we may have to withdraw from them because the sense organs would fail. Our eyes will get weakened, our ears will get weakened, we will get old, we will not be able to act in the same manner as what we were during our youth. We will have health issues, we will have sugar problems, pressure, blood pressure, whatever, and therefore we will not be able to eat whatever we thought we can. So there, at that point of time, to avoid the withdrawal symptoms, to avoid mental discomfort at that point of time, we will have to practice at the Grihastha Ashrama stage itself by going through tapas. A Grihastha Ashrama is an ashrama where we get ourselves prepared for the Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is the next stage. It is what is known as, in those days, hermit stage, or in today's terms we can call it as retired state. And Vanaprastha is about gradual withdrawal. Because if we study our physical body itself, it peaks into activity, and as we grow older, the physical body cannot get involved in all the extroverted activities. The physical body withdraws, and if there should be no strain in the mind, we should be learning to withdraw gradually. If there is a sudden withdrawal, the mind will go through problems, because the mind will be heavily active, but the physical body will not cooperate. You will know that there are a lot of people who are probably in the retired stage, old people, who would want to go out everywhere, they want to enjoy life, but their physical body will not cooperate. So there will be a conflict between the mind and the body. They would not be willing to listen to youngsters at home, to ask them, who ask them to stay at home, don't go out. They will not like to listen to them, because they want to be active, but their mind wants them to be active, but the physical body is not allowing them to. So there is this conflict which results in problems. And as we grow older, all the faculties that we have for grasping knowledge about this world, which is the sense organs, they become slow, they become doubtful. So the mind should actually start to learn to withdraw. The mind should learn to enjoy seclusion. This Vanaprastha ashrama is the time when the person needs to start looking inwards as a full-time role. The Vanaprastha is a training period for self-knowledge. It is about turning towards the self, where I tell myself it is enough for me to learn about this world. I have learnt enough of this world. There is no more need for me to get involved in the worldly activities. And now I should only look to learn to enjoy this seclusion and to understand about the knowledge of myself. So the Vanaprastha stage is a stage of withdrawal, seclusion. Now, if this is the Vanaprastha stage, let us try to analyze what are the Vishesha Dharma. We have always talked about Vishesha Dharma of each Varna and each Ashrama. So with regards to the Vanaprastha, what is the main duty of a Vanaprastha, of a retired person? The main duty of a Vanaprastha person is to not take up any duty. That is their main task. They should, on the other hand, be performing more of tapas, especially Vak tapas and Ahara tapas. Vak tapas meaning speak less, speak moderate, speak only when necessary. And Ahara tapas meaning the same thing with regards to food. Eat sattvic food, eat little food, eat only food that will actually be conducive to your health. And of course there will be also this is the time when the person needs to do a lot of more meditation, dhyanam or upasanam as we call it. Dhyanam and upasana we will again see in detail in the further classes, how to do dhyana, what are the different forms of meditation. We will see them later. But this person, if this person had lived this brahmacharya life properly, he would have come prepared for the grihastha ashrama, and he would have had a fulfilling life in grihastha ashrama, because in brahmacharya ashrama he would have had a simple life. Grihastha ashrama he would have, in brahmacharya ashrama he would know what is dharma and adharma. He would have studied the shastras properly, and then in the grihastha ashrama he would have lived according to what he has studied. And when he moves to the vanaprastha ashrama, he would voluntarily give up the grihastha ashrama and ease into vanaprastha, and he will seek the life of tapas. But nowadays we are seeing people who do not want to retire. They do not want to go to a life of seclusion, go to a life of self-enquiry. They do not like to be introvert. They do not want to let go of the keys of the house. They do not want to let go of the... They want to get involved in every activity that is happening in the house. They want to be involved in all the decision making process. But unfortunately, anyway, what happens is slowly but surely the next generation will force them to a life of tapas for the retirees, because the next generation would not like their life to be... They do not like any intervention from the elders. So instead of actually getting forced by the youngsters, it is better to do it voluntarily. Because anything that is done voluntarily will not involve pain. Anything that is forced will involve pain and sorrow in the heart and mind. For example, If I decide to go on fast today, I'll be okay. But if I am told by my son or my daughter to say that there is no food for you, then obviously it will hurt my mind. That you are not supposed to eat this, therefore we will not be serving you this. So that will actually cause me hurt or pain. The feeling is different. So Vanaprastha is a time when we should let go of responsibilities. Some people think retired life is for actually taking care of their grandchildren. It is not the case. There is no duty towards the grandchildren. Every parents have the duty to take care of their kids. No doubt. So the grandchildren will have to be taken care of by their parents, which is their sons or daughters. So what is the indication of Vanaprastha? Swamiji says, the indication of Vanaprastha is where the keys are not in our hand and we do not know what is being cooked for the next meal. So we should be in the house like a guest itself. We should live in such a way that we are not noticed in the house. That is the stage of Vanaprastha. Then for this person, then automatically, because he has turned inward, he has been focusing on dhyana or upasana, he has been introvert, he can now easily move to the next stage, which is called the sannyasa ashrama or the renunciate stage, the life of a monk. So sannyasa literally means renunciate, which means give up everything. Renunciation of everything. And what can be the best definition of giving up everything is giving up of ego and ignorance. If one is willing to give up the ego, then he has literally given up everything. So sannyasa ashrama, when we say give up everything, it is giving up the ego. Where at this stage the person should be mentally prepared to lose anything in life, which is going to happen anyway. Anyway, people, relations, objects, possessions, situations, nothing is going to last forever. If we are prepared for it, we suffer less. If we are not prepared for it, we suffer more. And at that stage, sannyasa ashrama stage, the chances are we will have to be prepared to lose everything in life or anything in life. So before Yamadharmaraja comes in, we should be ready to leave this world. We should be physically prepared, mentally prepared. So this stage, development of detachment is very important. Even physically we may not be able to detach from people, as in we may, at that stage, especially at the stage of sannyasa or vanaprastha, we might need physical help from people. But we should ensure that we do not get emotionally attached. Otherwise, when the time comes for us to depart, it will be very painful. So that is the sannyasa ashrama. And what is the Vishesha Dharma of a sannyasi or sannyasa ashrama person? Basically, as I said, monk life. So in this stage, this person would have to do Shastra Vichara. He has to do Shastra, he or she has to do Shastra Vichara, which is called as Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. This is a new term that I am bringing. We will go in depth to understand this term later. Shravanam means hearing, listening. Mananam means clarifying the doubts. And Nididhyanasanam means internalization. So Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Listening, clearing doubts and internalizing. Of what? Of Shastras. So they have to continuously reflect upon the Shastras and they have to deeply contemplate on Atma Jnana, on the self. This is the Vishesha Dharma of Sannyasa. So just to summarize, Vedas have split the society and individual's life into 4 different categories. Society split into 4 based on Varnas, and individual's life split into 4 stages called 4 ashramas. So to fulfill that Purusharthas that we saw in the first class, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, or Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, whatever way we want to say, to fulfill them, the Shastras have given this infrastructure. And the understanding is, to pursue these goals, there are certain course of discipline that Shastras give us. And this course of discipline for pursuing an end goal is generally called as sadhana. Again, a new term, sadhana. Sadhana means course of discipline that we undertake to accomplish a goal. Sadhana is the course of discipline. The goal itself is called as sadhyam. Sadhyam means the goal. And a person who undertakes this sadhana is called as a sadhaka. So a sadhaka undertakes sadhana to attain sadhyam. A sadhaka, which is the person, undertakes sadhana, which is a course of discipline, to attain sadhyam, which is the goal. And once we accomplish the goal, the sadhaka becomes siddha. Siddha. We have heard of the Siddha Purusha, we have heard of this term, Siddha Purusha. Siddha Purusha means one who has attained that goal. So Siddha. So this is the Varna Ashrama topic. The next topic is Karma Yoga, but before that I want to know if there are any questions on Varna or Ashrama topic so far. If you have any questions, please do type on the chat box. How practical is it for us to mind our own business when our children need help with their children? It is a choice that an individual has to make. If a person requires help, we can always help. But to understand, what we need to understand here is, it is not the duty of a grandparent. Some people take it upon as a responsibility or as a duty, and I just want to make it clear that the duty of the children's rearing lies in the parents' hands. If they want to go for work, both of them want to go for work, and they need somebody for babysitting, then it is a choice that the grandparents and the parents would have to make. So it is by doing so, getting involved in this, the grandparents typically lose their prime time in terms of maturing themselves spiritually. Remember, this whole concept of this spirituality is for an individual. We come alone, we go alone, we have duties and responsibilities, we have to be ensuring we are compassionate, we have to be helpful. All those things put together, with all those things said and done, we still have to understand we come alone, we go alone, we have to manage our mind, our growth, spiritual growth. So it is the choice that we have to make. Please define the age of the ashrams. Typically, Brahmacharya ashram is until a person gets married or at the age of 25. Normally, in those days, people get married the moment they complete their patashala, or even before they get married off, and then they start their grihastha ashrama immediately after finishing their student, after they come back from their patashala. As I said, the age for the vanaprastha is when you retire. And as far as the age for the parents are concerned, in terms of their responsibility towards their children, their responsibility for generally a boy ends when he completes his study or when he turns 25, whichever is earlier. So generally the parent's responsibility towards a son ends there. Then it is the responsibility of the son to take care of the parents. And if it is for a daughter, typically it happens because the daughter goes into another house, typically until she gets married is when the responsibility of the parents towards the daughter lie. And for the daughter themselves, she has got her own responsibilities in the family that she has been married into. Any other question? What is the difference between Upakurvana and Naishtika Brahmacharis? I don't know. Maybe I'll check. But here we are talking, I know about Naishtika Sannyasis and others, but I have not heard of Naishtika Brahmachari. But I don't know. I will have to check and get back to you on this one. The sadhana, sadhyam is common to all the 4 ashramas, I guess. Any goal is called as a sadhyam. Of course, for every individual, the final goal should be moksha. So the ultimate sadhana is towards the moksha. But so the final sadhyam is moksha, but there will be intermediary sadhyams to get to that stage, and therefore there will be intermediary sadhanas. The sadhaka is only one, the sadhyams would be many. The final goal, it is just like we have to go to, say, a remote place in India. We take a bus, then a train, then a walk, and then until we reach a particular destination. So similarly, there will be intermediary goals and intermediary sadhanas, but the final destination for every individual is moksha. So there will be multiple sadhanas, multiple sadhyams. And typically, as I said, in each ashrama, the sadhana is already defined. As I said, brahmacharya ashrama, the sadhana is to study Shastra Patanam. And for the Grihastha ashrama, the sadhana is Karma Yoga. We will see about that soon. For the Vanaprastha ashrama, the sadhana is Upasana Yoga. And for the Sannyasa ashrama, the sadhana is Jnana Yoga. So different sadhanas for different ashramas, but they are all intermediary goals to reach the final sadhyam, which is moksha. Okay, I hope I answered that. Should we not modify some of these definitions of responsibilities? They work when the whole society was acting in unison. In today's times, when women are seeking, and rightly so, attaining equality and independence, the boundaries between parents and parents-in-law are blurring. Similarly, for parents who do not have sons, who will take care of them? So, Ashishji, I am just making my, let me rephrase it in my words, the way I understand. Tell me whether I am right or wrong. So basically you are saying that there should not be any difference between parents or parents-in-law, especially because there will be a lot of people who do not have any daughters, and therefore even if they don't have the son to take care, the sons-in-law should be able to take care of them. Is that? And therefore these responsibilities should be, well, I mean, our Shastra has never said that the sons-in-law should never take care of their parents-in-law. It has never stopped us from doing it. So that was not. So if somebody is not taking care of their parents-in-law, it is not, they cannot blame, they cannot take refuge under Shastra. Okay. So Shastra has never said that you should never not take care of your parents-in-law. In fact, there will be a lot of those cases even in our Puranas where the protagonist or the person would take care of their parents-in-law also. But typically when they have sons, they let the sons take care of the parents-in-law. If they don't have sons, obviously you will have to take care of the parents-in-law also. I understood this question as asking about the role of daughters in the absence of sons. Even when there are sons, yes, there is nothing. See, the idea behind a Grihastha ashrama is to enable you to come out of your selfish mindset. Typically, every person born in this world is selfish. So the idea behind this Grihastha ashrama is to ensure that you are able to share with someone first. And typically, you share it with your wife, then your kids, then your parents. But it should expand beyond it. The idea of the Grihastha ashrama is to expand your your sphere of influence or your sphere of, I would say, giving, your sphere of sharing should be expanding. And that's why Grihastha Ashrama, you are also supposed to take care of your Vanaprastha. And if your parents-in-laws are also Vanaprastha, you are supposed to take care of them also. So there is, Shastra wise it's clear that you will have to take care of not just your family, even people outside your family. Does the Grihastha Ashrama include this responsibility of taking care of the parents both sides? Yes, I told you just now. Yes, you are supposed to take care of them. You are supposed to take care of every Vanaprastha if they do not have anybody to take care of them. But unfortunately, the materialistic world is all about how much I am able to build for myself, my family, my kids. So the Grihastha Ashrama typically is about expanding I. But today what happens is, which means I see beyond my body. I am able to see or empathize or be able to relate to other people around me also, is the reason why Grihastha Ashrama is made. But typically what has happened now is, I am actually, the I is become smaller, which is only me, but the mind is where I am actually focusing on. I look at my family, my sons, my daughters, my friends, my relatives. So typically it stops with my, and that is not what the Shastras was meant for, or these ashramas were meant for. Not acting according to the Vishesha Dharma in the different stages means they will not be attaining moksha and definitely go into the cycle of birth. We rarely see the last two stages being done according to Vishesha Dharma. Is that a statement, or do you want me to? Is there a question there? Not acting according to Vishesha Dharma in different stages means they will not be attaining moksha. Will definitely go into the cycle of birth and death. Typically, and this is with my understanding, I am going to say, I don't have, typically, as in whatever I have read from different sources, I am trying to tell what I understand with this, with regards to this. Typically what happens is, everybody is supposed to do their dharma, and according to their dharma they will get their punya or papa. If they follow dharma, they get punya. If they don't follow dharma, they get papa. In terms of the Vishesha Dharma, it is all TRP based. It is time, role and place based. And typically, because the karma changes of the kind of actions these days changes, typically the Vishesha Dharma also undergoes a few changes. For example, typically there was no computer programmer in an office, typically in those days. Today we have this kind of a role. So what is the Vishesha Dharma for that individual in that place? We will have to formulate, we will have to understand, we will have to derive out of the Samanya and Vishesha Dharmas given in those days. So typically what happens is, when you follow the Dharma that is necessary for that role, you get punya. If you don't follow the Dharma, you will get papa. So as a result, as long as you have punya or papa, you will get into So I'll break this into two. So that is one question. So as long as you follow dharma, you are going to forget punya. As long as you don't follow dharma, you are going to get papa. So leave that aside. Now the second point you have talked about is cycle of birth and death. Cycle of birth and death typically happens as long as I have punya or papa. If I have punya, I will get birth. If I have papa, I will get birth. But typically what happens is my punya and papa never exhaust. It is just too much in the bank. So typically I will have rebirth again and again and again. By following dharma, I will not be able to come out of the cycle of birth and death. It is not possible. Our Shastra says that to come out of my cycle, or to come out of the cycle of life, birth and death, to come out of this samsara, I should get jnana. I should get self-knowledge. Only self-knowledge will allow me to come out of this cycle of birth and death. So, the question is, for me to get jnana, what should I do? I should have lot of punya so that I get the right mindset. I should have the right guru, and I should have the right circumstances, a right environment. So I need all these three. I should have the right mind, I should have the right guru, and I should have the right environment. And for me to get these three, I need punya. So I follow Vishesha Dharma, or I do Dharma so that I get punya, so that I get these three, and with these three I am able to get my knowledge, and through that knowledge of self, of Atma, or of the Brahman, only then I will be able to break the cycle of birth and death. So these two, I couldn't actually put them into the same sentence as what you have done. Was that clear? Okay. Any other questions before we move to Karma Yoga? Okay. We will go to Karma Yoga, the next topic. Before that, I told you sadhana. So sadhana is typically a course of discipline that we undertake to accomplish a goal. And for this life, I just mentioned in this question answers also, there are three major sadhanas, or three major segments, or three levels of sadhanas. So a group of sadhanas belonging to one level, a group of sadhanas belonging to the second level, and a group of sadhanas belonging to the third level. There are three groups, and each group is called as yoga. And they are called as, what are those three groups? Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And this has to be visualized like a staircase. So Karma Yoga is the first step, Upasana Yoga is the second step, Jnana Yoga is the third step. And to reach the final goal, which is moksha, all the three are important, and all the three are compulsory. All the three are compulsory and necessary for all people. It doesn't matter whether you are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. It doesn't matter whether you are young or old. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female. It doesn't matter whether you are educated or uneducated. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor. It is the same. The 3 steps are Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. All 3 are compulsory, all 3 are necessary. One cannot skip any step if you want to reach comfortably the goal that we want to reach. The final goal is moksha. But as I said, each goal will have intermediary goals. And the first one is called as Karma Yoga. Now, yoga is again another term which has got a couple of meanings. Just like karma, dharma, we saw. Now we are saying yoga. Yoga has multiple meanings. For example, one meaning is called as topic. We say topic. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, each topic is called as yoga. Each chapter is called as a yoga. For example, we have Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the first topic. This is the first chapter. The second topic is called as Sankhya Yoga. So yoga, one meaning is topic. But if you look at the word yoga, the root comes from the word called yuj. Yuj means to combine, to unite. So what does it unite? Here it unites the sadhaka and the sadhyam. Sadhaka is the individual, sadhyam is the goal. So it unites them. The seeker and the sought. And what is the one that unites them? The sadhaka and the sadhyam? It is the sadhana. So karma yoga here means using karma as a sadhana. Karma as a sadhana. Now if I want to do a sadhana, I said I have to have a sadhyam. I need to have a goal. Of course, the final goal we know that it is moksha. What is the intermediary goal that I will get if I do karma yoga? Why should I do karma yoga? What is the intermediary goal? The intermediary goal for karma yoga is to attain chitta shuddhi. Another term, chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi means pure mind, clean mind. And from now on, we will be hearing this term often, chitta shuddhi. So please remember this term. Chitta shuddhi means mind which is clean, or in other words, a mind without any strong likes and dislikes. A mind without strong likes and dislikes. A mind without any addiction or aversions. Typically in these days, people take pride in proclaiming or claiming that I love this one, I hate this one, I love to be like that, I hate to be like this, I love this person, I hate this person. And they take pride in saying that. Shastra says, moderate it. Do not get overly addicted or do not have any hatred or aversion to anything. Moderate your likes and dislikes. Why do I need to moderate my likes and dislikes? We will see that. Why can't I have strong likes and dislikes? We will see that later. But what is the goal? of Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga's goal is Chitta Shuddhi, pure mind, a mind without strong likes and dislikes, a mind without addiction or aversion. Or another technical term, Raga Dvesha Rahita Manaha. You just understand Raga Dvesha. Again, this term will be used often. Raga Dvesha. Raga means attachment. Dvesha, we use that in Tamil also. Dvesham. Dvesha means aversion, hatred. Raga Dvesha Rahita Manaha. Rahita means without. Manaha, mind. So Raga Dvesha Rahita Manaha. Why do I need to give up Raga Dvesha? Why should I not have strong likes and dislikes? We will try to do a vichara. We will try to do some inquiry on that. Every human being, we are naturally endowed with what is known as a Viveka Shakti. Viveka, again another term. What is Viveka? Viveka means the ability to discriminate. Discriminate is generally used in the negative connotation in today's terms, but discrimination means differentiate. I am able to differentiate, but we use, actually the right word is discriminate. I am able to discriminate between what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is lie, what is dharma, what is adharma. That is known as Viveka Shakti. So every human being is endowed with this. We know what is good, what is bad. We know what is truth, what is lie. We know what is dharma, what is adharma. This ability to discriminate is available only for human beings. Viveka Shakti. Now what happens if I have raga or dvesha in my mind? And this discrimination power is important power. Because then I should know what is dharma, what is adharma. If I have raga or dvesha in my mind, the intellect which is supposed to do the discrimination between what is dharma and adharma, it will not be able to utilize that Viveka Shakti, because although it is in my intellect, my mind which has got this raga dvesha will cover it. I know this person is wrong, but because of the love that I have for my person, of that person, I will try to cover it up. Or I know that this person is not wrong. This person has done what every other person, individual will do. But because I have the desham in my mind, I will find fault in it. So this raga or dvesha will cover my intellect and will not allow my intellect to function properly. And this subject is a very subtle subject that we have to study. To study this subtle subject, I need to have a sharp intellect and a sharp mind and a clean mind. Sharp intellect, clean mind. Because only a clean mind will allow my intellect to function properly. I should have an objective mind. So if raga or dvesha is there in my mind, I will not be able to utilize the Viveka Shakti. And why do I need this Viveka Shakti for learning things here? Because the Viveka Shakti is going to help me to understand what is permanent and what is impermanent in this life. what is the thing that I should be seeking and what is the thing I should not be seeking. This is necessary for me to understand, because only then I will know which Purushartha should I be going after and which Purushartha should I be discarding. I need to attain something, once if I attain, I will not need to attain anything more. We are all looking for that elusive final thing. When we were young, we were always thinking, if I get good marks in my school, that is enough for me, that is my goal, that is made my life. But after that, we think, okay, if I am able to get into this college, my life is made. Then if I am able to get the grade, my life is okay. Then if I am able to get that job, my life is made. So we think our life is made in the next goal, but it never happens. We are seeming to be always struggling to find the next thing. Even at a very old age, I want to get my grandchildren married, or I want to see my kids get married. That seems to be the goal. No, there seems to be no goal there seems to be no time where I am able to say, okay, I have achieved whatever I want to achieve in this life. There is nothing more to achieve in this life. I am happy with the way it is. I don't seem to have that feeling at all. So I am always looking. So the best thing is, if I am able to achieve something or attain something, if I attained, I don't need to have a craving for attaining anything more. And to know what is that thing, to have that conviction, I need to have Viveka Shakti. So to get this Viveka Shakti working, I should not have any Raga Dvesha in my mind. And to remove the Raga Dvesha from my mind, I need Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is the sadhana to remove Raga Dvesha from my mind. Or Karma Yoga is the sadhana to be able to get Chitta Shuddhi. So that is Karma Yoga. So we have seen yoga, sadhana, what is the goal. Now there is this word karma. Karma is again another word which has got multiple meanings. What are the different meanings and what is the relevant meaning here? We will see it in the next class. Any questions? Okay. If not, we'll see it in the next class anyway. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः.